Welcome. Hi, this is Carol from Skill Check. And today I'm going to be talking about picking your battles and saving the day at the storage property because it's an important thing to do sometimes. And let's start out the right way. And I believe that's by protecting your business with an updated rental agreement. And if you don't have one, I'm getting no money from these two people. Scott Zucker and Jeffrey Greenberger are amazing. So either one, they know a lot about storage, or they know a ton about storage and in different states. So they're great people to have as resources and to, get your rental agreements from. And they review them if you have one, and they'll review it, or they'll just say, if you say, I want one, get me one, and you can do that too. But it's really important when you're trying to determine what to do with your people that are, I'm going to call them bad actors, if you will, or problem tenants. If you don't have a good rental agreement to show that, listen, we're going by the rental agreement. Can't. Here's some here. Let's look at things you don't allow the customers to do. That's kind of the fun part of this, is you've got these bad actors and you have problem customers. So you can't allow them to do bad things, right? So when you do, and if you, I used to teach junior high for a couple of years before I went totally into storage. But the interesting thing about that is that if you let one person act up in your class, then the next kid thinks they can, and the next kid, then the next kid, and it's not maybe all the children, but you get enough going at once, and it can be problematic, really problematic. Especially, I had junior high kids. I had, well, from 6th to 8th grade, and I taught drama also, and that was really difficult because the weird thing about that is that they're moving around the room, and it's just a very strange age. So yeah, sometimes my kids are older and now they still act like that, which is weird if you ask me. But you don't allow customers to stay when they're causing problems. So if the customer is causing a problem, you got to get rid of them. And that, let me tell you some of the things that would constitute that, right? Theft from another customer's space, yes, because sometimes when that person's on the property, they'll meander over to throw something in the dumpster, or even meander somewhere that they don't belong, and they're looking to see what's in people's spaces. Or they drive around like they're leaving, but they're going down every aisle and they're looking to see what people are storing. That's why some people will put the door down, or they just don't want you to look. I had this one lady that I was doing a physical inventory of the property, and I did it often, so it wasn't like I never did it, but for this company in particular. But anyway, so I got there, and so as I was walking up, she rolled down the door really fast, and I thought, that's weird. That's very strange. So I just kept going and kept doing my audit, and then as I came back around, she was putting the thing down, but again, when I was around, but she had some stuff outside the unit. And I said, hey, ma'am, we really need you, because a lot of this now is blocking the driveway. Either keep it like one side here. If you're trying to get to something else, keep it like along the side. Anyway, I was trying to help her out a bit. And then what she did every day, she mopped her unit out every single day. And because I asked the managers, I said, she was taking everything out, and they said she does it every day. I thought, man, I want her to clean my house. That's what I'm looking for. But she wasn't living in it. But you don't want them to live and visit it all day, defecate on the property, loiter around to other customers' spaces. You cannot allow any of these things to happen. So what do? Removing these customers who can't pay. I know if you've had any time in storage, they're going to say life issues. They were sick, they don't have a job, they're homeless. What are our options though? I mean, if we only have a few in self-storage about what to do with it. We can auction them off. They can sell their goods privately with an online auction. If I'm going to assume, I would hope you would allow them to do that, because that's kind of a new way to get rid of things. But you can go to like storageauctions.com, even if you don't use that at your facility I mean, that's a good idea too, but if you don't use it, you can go to them, and an individual can go to them and say, hey, we want to sell this stuff that's in the unit, and they can do that. And it says private storage on there, and it's really clear and it's nice, and it's because some people just they don't want to come get it, or they just want to get rid of it, and that's just an easy way to do it without having to get their stuff actually out of there. Sometimes we have to just cut our losses and run, right? Because you can re-rent the space. I have actually said, come get your stuff and get out, and you have, the next 2 days to get it out. And if you get it out, then we'll just walk away from this. And I've done that when the space is very valuable. We know that we could rent it. We have a high occupancy, and we're waiting for that. It would be better to cut them loose and not pay anything and to get someone in there. And I know that's a philosophy that not everyone agrees with, but check with your owner, try to find out what to do. But I think there are times where it's just easier to cut the loss and run and get someone else in there if you've got people waiting to get into those units. So when do you bring in the big guns? I guess I like my managers to handle everything until they feel like, maybe I better ask someone this or let someone know this. And we try to always work with, how to know when that is. But the first thing is, if the customer is asking you or requesting you to do something you can't do or you shouldn't do, I only need it like 2 days into because I won't get out on the first, but I can get out on the second. And I know the rent is due on the first, but they give you some of this, that, and the other. And so, well, you can make some decisions about that. But you have to be thinking always about, sometimes is it easier to accommodate someone and get them out of there, or to be able to ask your owner, just say, you know what, this person can give me $100, and then would you want to take that because they owe $150, and then we just tell them to get out, as opposed to going to auction. So there are some options that you can do there. But I think the other times, when you're asked again for something that you don't know if you can do, you need to speak to your supervisor. But when a customer isn't using the storage space for storage only, that's when you need to tell your supervisor. Because if you even suspect something, you should be telling someone they can maybe do something about it, or, because it can be very serious and it's really important. I think if you listen to very many of my webinars, I tell this one because to me, it's important, because I had a manager that said, hey, got a guy that just moved in, and they came in with a truck, and it had a Tommy lift on the back. So it had like electrical thing that moves and she said they have big, like 55-gallon drums in it. And I said, well, it was a business, right? Because I remember the guy was up there when I was up there doing something, but I left. But anyway, as it turned out, I had to turn around and go back. And the weird thing about it is, when I got there, the police were already there, and these people that were bringing this drums, they were supposed to have signage on the side of according to California, not every state's the same, but most of the time, if anything is going down the road that is some sort of chemical, it needs to be labeled. And so those labels with the numbers on them tell them what's in it. So there were no labels. So thank goodness they put all the stuff back in the truck. The police hauled the truck off. They arrested the man that was driving, and the guy that rented it was not, he might have been looking somewhere or watching what was happening, but the people that were there helping him, they all got arrested. And but the driver, he got in handcuffs and went to jail. So because he was transporting something illegally that he shouldn't have. But I will say that I'd be giving up that owner's name too if it were me. But if you suspect something, some customer's dangerous or problematic, you've got to say something to your supervisor. You also want to require credit cards for longer access. That's a really good way to keep people out of the storage spaces, because if they don't have a credit card, they typically are maybe more homeless, something like that, and wanting to get into the space at weird hours or use it in a way that we don't want them to. So if you require those credit cards for the longer access or than your office hours, then that was a good way to kind of keep people out of there. But don't allow customers to break the rules either for access or anything else, because sometimes people will give it to someone else or they'll follow someone else in if it's a gated situation. So there are a lot of ways that people can get in there without you even knowing it. So you may even have to overlock their unit if they're problematic. Yeah, and that might be able to get you in some trouble too, unless you inform them ahead of time that, we're going to keep an overlock on your space until the time that you need to be able to come in, use it, and then get out. So they're not doing whatever bad things they're doing. We can't let them to have shopping carts in there or animals. I found all kinds of animals over the years, goats. We did store a whale one time for SeaWorld, but that was all in good. That was all good. Got permission for that one. But you know, try not to make this a comfortable place and for people to come that are bad tenants. The easier you make it for them, the more they're going to love it. And the harder you make it, and every time you come around, you're going to have to say the same thing. If you're not actively getting something in and out, you can't just hang out here during the day. That's just, you got to make it uncomfortable. So let's talk about what can we do? What can we do to keep people out, to keep people, doing the right thing? I think getting additional security at the property is extremely important. I know door alarms are usually put in when we're developing a store, but there are other ones that, you can have retrofitted that it's not that expensive. I mean, especially when you want to do some capital improvements, you want to do something to the property. But again, the alarms, the door sensors, the cameras, the DVRs are really important. And you have to be able to know how to go back and use it and find it so you can give it to the police if something happens. And it doesn't mean that you have to have every corner of the property, but I think the main aisles, especially anything you've got, and get good cameras, because now good cameras are way cheaper than they used to be, and you get much better quality. So even fixing the ones that you have and getting a better DVR that you can use would be really important. If you need to know someone to do that, just give me an email and I'll try to refer you to someone. But overlocking the customer space is important, and that video monitoring, improving the lighting on the property. Again, so many places are kind of dark, or when lights go out, they don't even know that, something's happening. So I always like to, when I'm supervising a property, I go through the property at night also, because I want to see if all the lights are on, the signage is going, everything looks really good. But I don't just go during the day. I want to see it at the evening too. So improve your lighting if you can. Gosh, there's now so many. I did a few retrofits where we put some much less expensive just changing all the lights in the property. We changed every light in the property. It was like, wow, these LED lights use so much less electricity. It paid for itself within a few months. So it was really worthwhile doing that. But again, don't offer people food or money or free rent. All of that's going to cause more problems. And you really have to stick to your guns and be a good steward of the property. And I'm going to say beef up your security. So many problems that are happening at storage properties are happening when there's no one on site. And I've hired security guards in the past. I have because we've had multiple break-ins. At one store I had 80 break-ins, and so we were trying to have people monitor it, and even that wasn't catching them. The security guard can be good. It depends on where you're at and if you need it. Some of you, if you're in Poto, Oklahoma, you're not going to need a security guard. You probably may not even have a gate or anything fenced. But I have used guard dogs in the past. This is one of my. He was not feeling well that day, or he was getting groggy in the sun. But I have had guard dogs at some properties. A bit of liability. I put them up in a Stockton, California property that I had, but I had to put signage up. The guard dogs are on duty in the evening. Yeah, so it's been, I don't know, it's just such a pain sometimes, and I had to hire a company to do it. And but this is my big guy. He was 130 pounds. I think he doesn't really look it, but he was an amazing guard dog for sure for my kids. um, who are you going to call in emergency? Well, that's the funny thing about this, and I'm a boomer, so I brought up the Ghostbusters, but call the police first. Before you call your supervisor, before you call anybody else, call the police first. If it's an emergency, if someone is actively, shooting, or if they are, you know, like my guy with the crowbar that was going after another guy. I mean, if you see it, you got to do something about it, but you got to call the police, and don't be threatening your own personal safety by not, we're trying not to get into it. But again, I know I've had some managers that have gotten probably a little more involved than they should. But again, as soon as after you've called the emergency, call the police first, but then call your supervisor and owner to let them know what's happening, because all of this is so important about the timeliness of everything that you do. And again, let's start out with a great rental agreement that we talked about, and having rules and enforcing the rules of the property so we don't have more problems than we do. And when we do, I think it's important to call the police so they know that there is a problem at the store. I've said this story a couple of times lately because it just has come up, but I had a guy that was staying in well, I thought he was, kind of living in it. And when I did the physical inventory of the property and I talked to him, and I could tell he was living in there, right? He was in the unit and because um, the space was a little bit up, the door was rolled up a little bit, and I could see he was in there. So I went and talked to him, and then I told the manager, you need to get him out of here at night. Make sure that at night you get him out. So then I went to change, and I was going to dinner. And as I came around the corner by the property, one of the buildings was on fire, and it 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 didn't. I don't know. It was weird. I didn't register it right away. It's like, oh, that's my property on fire. Holy crap! Because I could see a glow at first, and then I was like, wow, that's got to be right by the storage property. Well, it was, one whole building that went up, and the man that I had talked to that day and told him not to stay in it, he burned up in the space. So it's very heartfelt when I tell you, please get in there and don't let people do bad things, not only to themselves, but what could harm other people or their goods. So be very, very careful. Call the police first, then get your supervisor. But when these things happen, we've got to communicate with each other and with the police and try to help do the best we can. So thank you so much for listening today, and subscribe to my channel, please. Again, I'm Carol Mixon from Skill Check. You can get a hold of me on the website for Skill Check, or you can call and I'll answer you, or you can email me too. There's all kinds of ways to get a hold of me. If you have any ideas for webinars that you'd like us to do, please give us any information or what you'd like us to cover, and we'll do it. And thank you, and happy renting.